A Roman expeditionary force operates as a calorie-hungry metabolic engine. Keeping a legion moving across a continent requires a relentless, unbroken supply of biological fuel. A force of 40,000 men, alongside their necessary pack animals, consumes tens of thousands of pounds of grain and thousands of gallons of water every single day. Marching through arid, hostile environments in heavy armor generates immense heat and accelerates dehydration. Every mile walked extracts a severe thermodynamic toll on the human body. King Mithridates VI of Pontus understood this math. Rather than meet the Romans in pitched battle, he developed a strategy of algorithmic avoidance. Rome deployed its most capable commanders to hunt him down, beginning with Lucius Cornelius Sulla, who applied relentless military pressure to the region. Decades later, the Republic handed the command to Pompey the Great, expecting his military machine to finally eliminate the Pontic king. But Mithridates engaged in a strict scorched-earth protocol. As he retreated, his forces systematically burned all domestic grain infrastructure in the Roman path. Simultaneously, Pontic forces poisoned the local wells, severing the Roman army's access to safe hydration. Mithridates weaponized supply chain friction. His objective was to mathematically starve the Roman organism, draining its caloric and fluid reserves before a single sword was drawn. The coastal macro-topography reinforced this strategy. Steep mountains crashed abruptly into the sea, offering virtually no viable farmland or easy terrain for a marching army. This diagram shows a Roman supply line pushing eastward from the Mediterranean. Moving deeper into Pontus, the logistical tether stretched to its breaking point. Denied local resources by the scorched-earth tactics, the Roman force burned through its internal reserves unsustainably. Mithridates manipulated the local ecosystem, converting the landscape into a hostile actor against the invading force. Soldiers began dying from sheer exposure, dehydration, and starvation, driving up severe attrition rates entirely independent of enemy combat. By the time Pompey's men penetrated deep into Pontic territory, they were a physiologically compromised force fighting a war against the environment. In 69 BC, a vanguard of Pompey's troops was marching through a dense coastal forest, already physically exhausted and highly calorie-starved. Along their marching route, local allies of Mithridates, known as the Heptacometes, left out massive clay bowls of deliball, or mad honey. Local bees produce this specific honey by harvesting nectar from the rhododendron luteum, an indigenous plant loaded with potent neurotoxins. Finding what looked like pure, high-density calories, the starving Roman soldiers broke rank and consumed the honey in large quantities. The clinical onset was rapid. Troops experienced severe nausea, extreme dizziness, and a total loss of motor coordination. As the soldiers collapsed along the forest floor, the Heptacometes emerged from the tree line. The Heptacometes carried out a methodical slaughter of the vanguard, killing legionnaires who were physically incapable of lifting their shields or drawing their weapons. The vanguard was successfully dismantled without the Pontic allies taking casualties. Biological area denial had completely neutralized a heavily armed Roman unit. The chemical agent responsible for this paralysis is Grayanotoxin I, a polyhydroxylated cyclic diterpene. This diagram details the cell membrane of a human neuron, specifically highlighting a closed, resting voltage-gated sodium channel known as NAV1.X. Grayanotoxin penetrates the membrane and binds directly to the internal face of the channel on segments IS6 and IVS6, physically locking it open. Under normal conditions, this channel inactivates immediately after firing an electrical signal. The toxin prevents this necessary reset process entirely. As a result, a continuous flood of positively charged sodium ions rushes uncontrollably into the interior of the cell. This triggers a state of prolonged cellular depolarization. The neuron fires but cannot reset, trapping the nervous system in a state of chaotic static. Macroscopically, this chemical blockade directly attacks the parasympathetic nervous system, overloading the paired vagus nerve. The vagus nerve dictates the pace of the heart and lungs via specific muscarinic acetylcholine receptors. When grayanotoxin overstimulates these receptors, the heart rate plummets into severe bradycardia, and blood pressure collapses into extreme hypotension. Stripped of regulated electrical signals, the body's skeletal muscles experience progressive, crippling paralysis. A reversible sodium channel agonist dismantled the biology of the Roman soldiers from the inside out, rendering their armor and training useless. Mithridates understood chemical threats intimately. Having survived assassination attempts during his youth in the royal palace, he lived with extreme paranoia regarding poisons. To protect himself, he engineered Mithridatium, a complex 50-ingredient prophylactic compound intended to serve as a universal antidote. His method relied on precise homeopathic dosing. Every single day, he ingested sublethal amounts of the era's most common and deadly poisons. Over decades, this relentless cellular stress forced his liver to upregulate specific metabolizing enzymes, generating a robust immunological resistance to toxins. He weaponized biology externally against the Roman legions, while simultaneously engineering his internal biology to defend against his own court. By methodically exposing his own tissues to lethal compounds, Mithridates turned his bloodstream into an impenetrable chemical fortress. By 63 BC, after 3 decades of attritional warfare, the strategy finally broke down. Betrayed by his own son, Pharnaces, Mithridates found himself trapped in a citadel in the Crimea. Pompey's forces breached the outer defenses, desperate to capture the Poison King alive so they could parade him through Rome in a military triumph. Facing capture, Mithridates executed a final protocol. He administered a lethal dose of poison to his 2 young daughters, and then ingested a massive quantity himself to ensure a quick death. But the poison failed. His lifelong regimen of Mithridatium had engineered his liver too perfectly. His internal biological firewall held firm, neutralizing the lethal dose and trapping him alive inside his own body as the Romans stormed the gates. Immune to the very chemical weapons he had mastered, the king was forced to order his personal bodyguard to execute him with a blade. Pompey claimed the territory for the Republic, but he was denied his prize. Rome never captured Mithridates alive. While Rome secured the territory, Mithridates had sustained a 30-year resistance by weaponizing the metabolic, neurological, and chemical vulnerabilities of the Roman state. He demonstrated that local ecology can be a primary instrument of military denial.